Now, for this next story, forget the coronavirus. Israeli health officials reporting a recent wave of hospitalizations due to the dangerous and illegal synthetic cannabinoid known as Mr. Nice Guy. In fact, at least 39 Israelis have been hospitalized in serious condition this year, including a dozen teens just last weekend. And at least one Israeli was killed by the drug, Rambam Medical Center in Haifa pronouncing him dead on Monday. The Ministry of Health therefore launching a joint investigation with police and issuing a dire warning to would-be users, saying that the drug is, quote, particularly dangerous because it's mixed with different substances, including other drugs, poisonous materials like rat poison, pesticides, and more, all of which change from dealer to dealer. A blanket ban on Nice Guy and other synthetic cannabinoids was put into effect in 2011. In any case, joining me now to discuss is Director of the Clinical Pharmacology Institute at the Rambam Health Campus in Haifa, Professor Daniel Kurnik. Professor, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Now, what have you noticed about the recent hospitalizations, and what are the symptoms and their causes?
Our outbreak here is similar to outbreaks reported previously in the US. The patients come with bleeding. The bleeding sites can be anywhere. It's often in the urinary tract, so they notice that the urine is blood-stained, but it can also be in the gastrointestinal tract. They come with blood in the feces, in the stool, or they are coughing up blood. And the worst scenario is obviously bleeding into the brain, which led to the most severe cases. This is a rare among patients who are not treated with medications to stop the coagulation system. We in medicine, we have many indications where we give our patients medications to stop the coagulation in patients who had thrombosis or want to prevent thrombosis. But in patients who are not treated with that, this is an unusual presentation. And when those patients were tested for the coagulation system, the blood just didn't coagulate at all. So it was very, very clear that they had been exposed to something that caused a great derangement in the coagulation system.
So what are the intended effects of Nice Guy, psychoactively and physically, and what happens to long-term users?
So there is actually no connection at all between the intended use. Mr. Nice Guy is a synthetic cannabinoid drug. So it's basically more medical marijuana or cannabis, but produced in a lab. And it's much more potent in its pharmacological activity to bind to the receptors in the brain. So we have, on the one side, a synthetic lab-produced drug, which should not cause any derangement in your coagulation system. And on the other hand, the observation that these patients are bleeding as if they were taking anticoagulants. And what happened in the past when these things were tested, and this is what appears to be the case in our cases here, in our outbreak, is that somehow, we don't know exactly how, anticoagulant substances which act as anticoagulants have been mixed with the synthetically produced cannabinoid drugs. So these drugs are adulterated, and we don't know how that happens. There are a lot of theories about that. And actually, in our outbreak, we also found the same kind of anticoagulant used basically as rat poison, which was found in those synthetically produced cannabinoid drugs.
So how addictive is Mr. Nice Guy, or is it what's in it that's addictive? And what precisely is the difference between Nice Guy and cannabis?
So cannabis is the produce of a plant. It's produced, and it has been used for thousands of years in different human cultures. And it is a mix of very, very different, many different substances, actually. We think we know which are the most active ones. Mr. Nice Guy or many other, there are many other street names for those drugs. They are synthetically produced, they are chemically produced drugs that act on the same receptors. This is not one drug, because every illicit lab produces a variation more or less, and these things are always developing over time. So Nice Guy is not like a pharmaceutically protected trade name where you know exactly what you will be consuming when you buy it. It's all illicit after all. So it's basically a very, very, very strong enhanced effect of cannabis, what we know is the cannabis effect. And because it's so much stronger, so the adverse effects of it are much stronger and not comparable to the simple medical marijuana or marijuana use by smoking, weed, what we call weed. Now, the important thing is because this is all illicitly produced. In our case, most cases, most of our cases, the Mr. Nice Guy was smoked. So what happens is that the synthetic drug is mixed in leaves, in dried leaves, similarly to tobacco leaves. It's not tobacco, but it's all kinds of different leaves, and then smoked. And we think that by accident, there's no purpose we don't think that there's any purpose in doing that. By accident, the rat poison that has the strong anticoagulant effect was mixed with the leaves, and whoever was smoking the synthetic cannabinoid was exposed to that rat poison with dramatic and drastic effects.
Wow. All right. Well, Professor Kurnik, thank you so much for this informative yet unfortunately disturbing report.
My pleasure.